Oh, hi.
Hey,
from Cali.
Really quick, I'm just going to shout out. We're low on callers. So if you don't want to leave me with him, please call in 512-686-0279. We have call screeners waiting to talk to you.
Yep.
Please do call in.
That's a good idea.
Also,
hashtag save Eric.
That's a good idea. Maybe you remember.
Also, in the live chat, hold on just a second. Also, in the live chat, I did want to bring up that I've seen people who are donating in the live chat. And yes, if you do donate in the live chat, 100% of that donation comes to the ACA. People were remembering that on the Atheist Experience a couple weeks ago, it was brought up that Vern, our audio engineer, and myself are in really, really crappy chairs.
Well, actually, it was brought up here that the guys in the booth need.
Oh, it was when you were on with Claire.
It was Claire. Claire brought it up that Mark and Vern are in terrible chairs. That Vern
and the call screening,
the sound engineer, is in the squeakiest chair. That it's beyond the level of squeakiness,
but
for anyone that works with sound.
But for this, I mean, really,
imagine the
So
imagine call screening getting difficult, especially when there's a lot of callers.
Well, and also anytime you.
It's like a 911 operator kind of job.
Anytime you even remotely lean back in my chair, which is the call screener chair during the week, it immediately goes to the floor.
Yeah.
But people were donating in the live chat, and we really, really appreciate it because it would be nice to get an ergonomic chair, one that's not super noisy. But Austin.
You guys should do some in-house gambling setup, or it would be illegal. So never mind. Now you can't get.
Yeah, I was going to say. Terrible.
I was like, but I'm not just the host of the show. I am the president. We will not have gambling here.
Okay, but Austin, when you called on, I was on with Thomas Westbrook. Holy Kool-Aid! Jamie wasn't here. Do you want to bring us up to speed, and then let's?
What's going on, Austin? Tell me all about it.
Well, which part? I'm actually calling to talk about something serious. I'm talking about how we got to realize. How we dissect the religious stories in ways that we don't recognize. And, I'm here to sort of talk about not cutting off the head from God, basically, because that's kind of something that people hold on to a lot, So, yes, I do register as an atheist, but the most important thing I want to talk about is our own morality and how
morality seems to be a theme today.
I was going to say, you register as an atheist on the atheist detector, or do you mean that you qualify and that's it? Okay.
Or he can just self-identify.
No, I mean,
I was just sort of wanting to clarify that.
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.
Okay.
I'm a physicist.
Congratulations.
I want to talk about. Well, that's a good thing, but it could also relate to luck. Well,
let's kind of let's get out of the weeds and onto course here. So you wanted to talk specifically about how we dissect stories in the Bible. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. That's the theme that Sam Harris has talked about. Actually, it's a little lost, I think.
Okay. Because, what specifically about that do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that when we read the Bible, or when we read any story, we sort of look at that, be nice to each other, don't steal from each other. Yeah, that sounds right. I'm so glad that God exists. And then kill your neighbor. God must have he's trying to be poetic. Or so it's like we're judging the Bible. The Bible is not judging us.
Well,
and you need to start realizing. Well, of course not. Yeah,
right.
The book really can.
Okay, so
any movie can say it's based on real events, just like a book can. But let's look at what's resonating with human beings with these religious stories. It's talking about afterlife, what's going to happen to us after we die, and it's difficult to not think about some kind of purpose, or at least, life could get hard enough where you just start to, introspect purpose just to keep yourself sane.
So sure. What I will say is that that's not universal. I actually recently had a discussion with an old friend that I got to see again for the first time in a while, who they do not call themselves an atheist, but they wanted to know why I did and what I was doing here and what this all meant. And so I got to explain it to them, and they were like, wow, you know, it seems like you've really thought this out. I wasn't sure how much you'd thought this out or this, that, and the other. And one of the things they said, just sort of plainly, that I, you know, hadn't really thought about, but that surprised me, is they said, well, you know, I don't believe that there's an afterlife at all. And then they like sort of moved on, as if it was just sort of like, well, there's people that believe this, I don't. And then they moved on. And as far as I'm aware, that's never presented a problem for them. And interestingly, it's also never really presented a problem for me, which like in a big existential way. It does for many people, but I wanted to highlight that that can't be the only reason that people believe in a God, because there's people that believe in a God, call themselves Christian, and say, no, there isn't an afterlife.
I feel like we started talking about stories, and then instead of bringing up a story, we went to a generality, and then qualified that generality, and then qualified the qualifier. So we need to zoom back.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand what you're saying, and definitely there are luxurious reasons for some people to amplify religion. But what I'm talking about is the stories themselves and how there are characters in these stories. And the religious stories. We have the God that's this tyrant, and then we have this prophet who usually starts off as this young moral character and relates to us as a human being.
Okay.
This omni everything doesn't relate to a human being. The prophet does.
Okay.
And then the prophet, if we really look at it, the God's characteristics are the opposite of the prophet's characteristics.
Okay, we got that.
So let me jump in here, because I think I may be missing this because I wasn't here last week. You're talking about the characteristics of the God character or characters. The God character as portrayed in the Old Testament versus the God character as portrayed in the New Testament. And you're talking about how one is more relatable to an individual human being than the other. And what I would say is, just remind me really quick, other than, you know, book report, what is where are we going with this? Is there like a destination that we're getting to?
You're setting up. Just knock it over. We're ready.
Yeah, knock it down. We're with you.
Give us the punchline. We're done with setup. What do you got?
Confusion. Yeah, I'm just talking about the confusion. Is that we need to separate the prophet from the God. The God is this horrible tyrant. The prophet is this nice person who wants to help people. And the problem is that we're putting it all together. People, everyone, we are putting it all together. I think that's a big like it's a
why would we
for where the confusion goes.
Okay, so let me just say, why would we use? It sounds like what you're saying is, in order to use the good stories or the parts that one might like as teaching tools from the New Testament, it's important to separate them from the Old, or even just to separate the person that is Jesus from this idea of a tyrannical God. And sort of my question that would kind of circumvent this entirely is, why would we use the stories in the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, where we're at is we're dealing with other people's interpretations, not offering interpretations ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the problem is that there are 2 billion people who believe in this story over a lot of other stories.
Okay.
Well, why do people believe in this story? Because it gives them some kind of purpose. Other stories don't.
Well, hold on, Austin. You're creating a straw man.
Yeah,
you need to wait until you talk to the person and ask them, and then meet them where they are. Because when you start assigning,
what other story talks about? Or what other story talks about heaven and hell after you die, type of thing?
Most religions,
you know, not
most religions. That's a hallmark of religion. Yeah. But even then, there are so many differentiations that what I would say is, because I've gotten this before. I've gotten other people call in and say, "I've got the solution. There are going to be no more Christians. I promise. Here is something that's not consistent in the Bible."
Christian specifically. No.
But
I'm just talking about morality.
I know.
I'm talking about reason for morality.
What I'm saying is that is a good point to bring up in the context that you find that. Fantastic. I'll agree with that. I would just be careful, you know, when you start making generalizations, what you can do is you can wind up talking past the person because they might not ascribe all of their beliefs. And I mean, really, for us, it's all fucking, wacky nonsense anyway. So it's not like we're, convinced by it, but we got to meet them where they're at.
Easy to say that. It's easy to say that when you have a lot of other ties to happiness, possible happiness, reasons to live. It doesn't exist for a lot of other people. But we're failing to reach some portion of the society who see God as anything other than this life.
And that's why we're here.
Because it comes down to morality.
Not necessarily. That people believe for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think I like the point that you brought up. I think the point on morality is a separate one. Right? I think the point on morality is a separate one. But it would be one that I would like to explore at another point.
Well, it's just something that a lot of people don't have an answer to. Well, they keep looking. Hey, you keep saying it's not you, and generally, like a lot scientists, atheist community, they keep saying, let's have other reasons to live, and they say, but what about morality? And then there's no answer for exactly why we should be moral. We end up saying, okay, solipsism is the best we can do. Now,
so Austin, it sounds like
how do we feel other people's existence?
So it sounds like you've touched on a couple of things here, and I want to see if I can connect them and sort of form or help you communicate what a thesis of what you're trying to say might be. So you've talked about how there are stories in the Bible, how people use these stories of the afterlife to give their life meaning and the reasons that they're living now. And you've said, I think a couple of times in a couple of ways, that it all comes back to morality, and that I think it's been hinted that people use the stories in the New Testament as a way of teaching morality or as a way of determining what is moral. Am I at least somewhat on board with some of the things you've said?
Absolutely, except just the last part, I would say that not those stories themselves, but generally people are looking for morality. And it's hard for those people to say, all this is complete nonsense and gibberish, when I can feel so related to the religion, the basic message, as we will, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, it's
religious stories.
Austin.
The problem is this.
Austin, we know.
Yeah,
we know.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, my life was. I like to joke that my life was encapsulated in 4 VHS tapes that existed in my house, and the first 3 of those are Star Wars Episode 4, Star Wars Episode 5, and Star Wars Episode 6. So I grew up with stories that taught me about a way of being and a way of acting. And I think in some ways, that's why throughout my life I've placed a level of emphasis on being calm and knowing what to do when you are calm. As they say in these movies, when a Jedi is calm with the Force, you will know, blah, 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 blah. But no part of that requires the Bible.
Jedi in 2001. As a religion, Jedi.
Well, so here's what I was saying. Here's what I would say is, it depends on what you mean by religion. If you mean a belief that any of these things are real, then I would say no, it's entirely unnecessary.
No. The problem is that even our science fiction talks about things about the future that we have to look through those stories. And we have to look at all these stories are telling things about ourselves.
Yes.
And the confusion comes from weird characters being equivocated to each other.
Well, the confusion comes from Jordan Peterson-esque bullshit that pulls, if you look at the substrate of the character, what you're going to find is that there's a deeper truth that's held up. And I, in a way, have to believe that Jedis are true. I'm sorry. I can't do my Kermit voice because I got really fucking slammed for it.
No, I was going to say, if you also had the voice,
Yeah, so I take the best out of what you can with it, but remember that it's all bullshit. Because you're not going to reason your way into it.
Matters of fact is how.
Perfect.
Matters of fact is how we grow up.
Perfect.
That comes first.
I agree. Yeah, Austin, we agree with you.
And I would say, if you're trying to communicate ideas, you can do some of those with stories, right? You can tell the story of a man on a trolley and there's two ways forward. The trolley's brakes are broken, and on one of the tracks, there are 5 people, and on another track, there's 1 person. And you can use this story to demonstrate a moral dilemma in the same way that Star Trek as a series has always done this. And it's fantastic, and at no point in time does it say that genocide is good or necessary or claim to be true or historical.
Austin, the rest of this conversation is feeling like the conversation you have with a beer with somebody at a table, not on a call-in show.
And what I would say is, come to Austin, have a beer.
I appreciate your time.
No problem. We appreciate it. You just need to get your ass to Austin so we can sit, because these are conversations that are best had because you're flying and there's a whole lot that's going on. This is something that you have in person with somebody. This is not a good format for it. All right, buddy?
I appreciate it. You're right.
All right. Thank you for calling in.
Take care, brother.
Noting that these conversations are important and can happen on the Facebook discussion group page, which is called ACA Productions, is good. Yeah. And it's interesting. Well, no, I won't use that as a... Never mind.
All right. Sorry.